What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Two of you in particular, in fact, because today I'm reading two stories from you guys. If you guys didn't know, once in a while, I will read out stories submitted by my listeners, by my viewers. You guys right now watching and listening to this, all you've got to do is email your story in to redditorytstories@gmail.com. It's on screen right now, also linked in the description. If you want to have the chance for your story to be in a video, for me to narrate it and give my thoughts on it, and that is what I'm doing in this one. Two phenomenal stories. Without further ado, sit back, relax, subscribe if you want to see your story in a future episode. Let's go. How my entitled late aunt lost everything. Buckle up, because this story is an absolute doozy that spans nearly 4 years. Some backstory that's relevant to the story. In December of 2020, my father agreed to put his mother into a nursing home to protect his sister, my aunt, from an elder abuse investigation and getting my grandmother moved into state care. Because of my aunt's negligence, my grandmother had been hospitalized 3 times in 2 months. Once for a severe UTI, another time for an infected wound because my aunt secured my grandmother's diaper with duct tape, and the final time because of second-degree burns after my aunt left a heating pad on my grandmother's back overnight. Ironically, in October 2021, my aunt would end up in a nursing home after she burned herself with a heating pad, then didn't get medical treatment until the burn was badly infected. In January 2022, my grandmother passed away at the age of 94 years old. In my grandparents' will, they split their estate between their 2 children 50-50. However, because neither my father nor aunts was on the deed to my grandparents' house, it was signed over to a probate lawyer who would be tasked with selling it. When my father started going through his mother's affairs in February 2022, he discovered that the state was on the verge of taking the house because the only bills my aunt bothered paying were the electric and cable bills, and she hadn't paid property taxes since December 2020. My father also discovered that there were 2 massive liens on the house, totaling almost $200,000. One from the nursing home my grandmother had been in because my aunt hadn't paid them either. The other because my aunt convinced my grandmother to take home equity loan out on the house so that she could buy a car. Initially, she was only supposed to take what she needed for the car, roughly $6,000. However, my aunt went behind my grandmother's back and would end up taking the full $100,000 the bank offered them. My aunt had been able to co-sign for the loan, so she was authorized to take the full amounts. She also never made any of the monthly payments on that loan because she legitimately thought loans were money banks, just giving people free, no strings attached cash. My aunt never told anyone what she did with the remaining $94,000, but the rest of the family suspects that she gambled it away at local casinos. My aunt was also given full access to my grandmother's bank account, which she'd almost completely drained before my grandmother passed, meaning my father had to pay any outstanding bills from his own pocket, though he was eventually reimbursed by the lawyer. Goodness me, just 2 paragraphs in and already, what a woman your aunt is. Some point between late January 2022 and March 2022, in an attempt to buy herself some time to recover enough to leave the nursing home and thinking that the house couldn't be sold if somebody was living in it, my aunt convinced one of her friends to move into my grandmother's vacant house, unbeknownst to my father and the lawyer. As you can imagine, things got messy when my father found out. Initially, my aunt told my father that the man was there to take care of her 2 cats. However, even after my aunt was court-ordered to sign her 2 cats over to my father due to neglect and abuse, the man refused to leave. Both cats have been treated and rehomed and are doing well. Well, that is good to hear. We eventually found out that man had broken his lease, moved out of his apartment, and had nowhere else to go except his and my aunt's daughter's house, and who adamantly refused to let her father move in with her. Around April, my parents started to deep clean the disgustingly dirty house with the man still living there, and he did everything in his power to obstruct my parents' efforts. He'd call up claiming he was sick with COVID, which my parents almost always called his bluff on since he was physically disabled and never left the house, nor had anyone but my parents visit. One day, he told my mother, well, Sharon, who is my entitled aunt, said we'd be able to live here forever, and that my father didn't have the balls to kick me out. Well, my mum told my father what had been said, and the very next day, my father gave the man an ultimatum. My father told him, either you leave on your own by May 1st, or I'll have you evicted. The man chose the eviction route because my aunt told him they can't legally evict a disabled person, and he believed her. He ended up having to move in with his daughter, who is no longer speaking to my aunt because my aunt has ruined that woman's livelihood on multiple occasions. But that's a whole other story. However, before he left the house, per my aunt's orders, he stole several valuable pieces of jewelry, including a box of rings that had been willed to her cousins. We were able to get the stolen jewelry back in late 2023 after the probate lawyer had to send police to retrieve it, which is another doozy of a story. I feel like, despite the fact that this story is fantastic, there's so much more to uncover in this story. Like, there's so many different intricacies and events that I would love to delve into at a later point. But for now, goodness me. Because of the whole squatter incident, we missed a massive housing boom where houses were selling for significantly more than what they were worth. And the house was put on the market during a slump and ended up selling for almost $150,000 less than what it was worth. And it led to another lengthy legal battle with my aunt because she refused to sell or throw out any of her furniture in an attempt to buy enough time to leave the nursing home until she was court ordered to do so. Given what the house sold for and deducting the lien from the home equity loan, the lien the nursing home put on the house had actually been dismissed by a judge, the end figure that my father ended up with was just under $60,000, while my aunt ended up with just under $50,000. My aunt got less because the probate lawyer charged her more than he charged my father because she was the one who had drawn things out for so long. Around that time, my aunt had been deemed unfit to make decisions for herself by a judge and several of her doctors, and ended up signing her half of the inheritance to my father to avoid losing it to the nursing home that she was in. My aunt passed away on August 1st at the age of 68 from multi-organ failure caused by years of heavy smoking, ignoring her diabetes, and refusing to consent to a surgery that would have likely saved her life. We didn't have a funeral for her. We simply had her cremated, and her ashes, along with pictures and other personal belongings, were given to our older daughter. My aunt's younger daughter tried to sue my father for the rest of her mother's inheritance, but the suit was quickly dropped since the money my aunt had inherited after her mother's death had already been signed over to my dad. So my aunt's daughter had no right to it. Our one saving grace in this whole fiasco was that my aunt was in a nursing home for the entire process. Otherwise, it would have been significantly messier. There's a lot I didn't go into for the sake of not typing out an almost literal novel, but I'll gladly elaborate on anything I can. Thanks for reading. Okay, goodness me, what a story. I can't quite believe that someone like that exists in your life, OP. But all I can really say is fair play to your dad for actually sticking with this and going through it, using so much of his own money and eventually ending up with really not that much for all his trials and tribulations. Although I am slightly surprised that there was any inheritance left after all of this. But wow, I mean, earlier this year, my granddad died, my dad's dad. And my dad and his brother, my uncle, have been working pretty hard to make sure that, you know, all the money goes to my granny correctly and goes through probate, etc., etc. And yeah, like going through different bank accounts and seeing what's owed and yeah, making sure everything's all right. I've never had any experience of that myself, but while reading this story, all I could think was, if one of them was against the other one and like was trying to put money into different places or was trying to take money, my granny's still around, so like the money was always going to go to her. But I mean, like, say she wasn't and the two of them were against each other, how would you ever come to some sort of conclusion or agreement? I mean, like, imagine if this woman was involved, this horrible aunt of yours, OP. I can't imagine that the stress and the workload that would have to go on top of what already seemed to be, from my perspective anyway, a lot of work. But yeah, I guess this is not a one-off thing. People argue over inheritance all the time. Maybe not to this extent though. And also, I would say, actually, can you consider writing that novel, OP? Thank you for submitting it. Great story. But as I said halfway through that, I feel like there's so much more to unpack here, so many more events. I would read a short story based on your life and in particular, your aunt's. All right, now moving on to our next story submitted by one of you guys. Just let the kids sort it out themselves. Okay then. Backstory. I live in a town in the Netherlands with a university, and a few years ago, my girlfriend's cousin got accepted as an overseas student. My girlfriend is Japanese. Her family, father, mother, her sister, and herself, moved to the Netherlands while she was younger. Her cousin still lived in Japan when she applied, got accepted, and is now living in a student room in the Netherlands. We don't really have dorms here, like in the US, but the building she lives in is maintained by the university itself. Said cousin is doing quite well for herself, got good grades, and is well on her way to get her diploma. Partly because of this, the overseas family decided to have their vacation in the Netherlands this year, both for leisure and a bit of a family gathering. This story takes place during that family gathering. My girlfriend's parents and the cousin's parents, plus yet another family, had a meeting in a restaurant in my hometown. They had 2 little kids in tow, sisters. They looked like 8 or 9 or so to me, but my girlfriend later told me they're actually 11 and 12, but did look younger than they were, probably also because of their school uniform. At least that's what it looked like to me. I really don't know. Anyway, the idea was to catch up with the family, and my girlfriend was asked if she would be willing to keep the 2 young kids busy for a few hours since she was the oldest of the lot. My girlfriend and me are in our 40s. Her studying cousin is around 25, and as said, the 2 kids are 11 and 12. Now my girlfriend didn't mind, but did ask me if I wanted to come along as well. Her cousin didn't mind. The 3 of us had met a few times before already, and well, it was all about keeping the young kids busy anyway. Oh, for the record, the 2 young kids basically only speak Japanese. They do understand bits of English and can even speak some, but it's mostly Japanese. My girlfriend's cousin speaks both Japanese and English and has even learned quite a bit of the Dutch language as well. Seriously, for the few years she's been here, it's in my opinion quite impressive. My girlfriend speaks Japanese, English and Dutch, and as for me, Dutch, obviously, and English. But over the years, I've also managed to pick up a decent bit of Japanese as well, and I can often, not always, understand the general gist of things, as long as it's not too quickly spoken or too complicated. So basically, it was all English and Japanese between us. Right then, let's get into the story now. A bully shows up. We took the kids for a walk through my hometown, and they were quite interested. But when we went past a playground, that also quickly got their attention. So the 3 of us decided to go and sit on a bench and let the kids have some fun. There were several activities, like an air balloon castle, swings, a sandbox for younger kids to play in, just plenty of things to do. The 2 wanted to go into the castle, which was fine with my girlfriend, as long as they made sure to only use the entrance and exit, which was located on our side, so they wouldn't get lost and we could keep track of them. The 3 of us talked quite a bit, but also kept eyes on the castle. So, around 15 or so minutes later, I spot the 2 again by accident near the exit with a little kid in between them. I have no idea, but I'd say she was around 8 or so. I can't really tell exactly what's going on, but I did see the kid point to the area of the sandbox, and that's where the 3 of them headed next. Before I can say anything to my girlfriend, a young lady walks up to us and asks, in Dutch, if we have seen a little girl passing by. This seems way too coincidental to me, so I ask, is she wearing a pink dress by any chance? The woman's face lights up as I tell her that she seems to be with my girlfriend's younger cousins, and I point to the sandbox. But when we look over, we now also see an older boy near the girls. I'm not good with guessing ages. Let's just say that he was bigger than them, and he's clearly harassing them. The small girl is visibly crying, but is also comforted by one of the 2 younger cousins, while the other is keeping the boy away from her. We all walk over to the sandbox just when the boy manages to shove one of the cousins out of his way, and he's clearly trying to bully the young girl in the pink dress, but is now stopped by the other cousin, which is when we arrive. The woman who is with us berates the boy and tells him to stop picking on young children, but the little brat clearly isn't very impressed. The incident. The next moment, his mother, so I assume, storms over yelling, and she has every appearance of a Karen. Or a Toki, as we tend to call them over here. A little argument ensues, mainly between the mother of the girl in the pink dress and our Karen, or Toki. It goes back and forth, but it's apparent that according to his mother, the brat did nothing wrong by picking on a girl half his own size, and this fine example of a mother even has the audacity to blame the other mother for raising such a weak little C-word. Basically, and then, if you are Dutch, have a look on screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. That's what was said. And then the Karen says, kids will be kids, just let them sort out their own problems already. But she does take the boy with her as she walks away. The mother gets ready to grab her kid and leave, but in the meantime, the girl has completely calmed down and is actually having a great time with the 2 cousins. Unknown to anyone else yet at this time, my girlfriend decides to comply with the earlier suggestion. First, she asks the mother to reconsider leaving because the kids are having so much fun together. My girlfriend also comments how amazing kids are because they clearly don't speak the same language, yet they seem to understand each other just fine and are having a good time. The mother agrees, and my girlfriend now addresses both her cousins in Japanese, and it sounded very serious to me. Something about the tone, the way she talked, and also looked at both girls, even a bit sternly. They both nodded and clearly said, "Hi," aka "Yes, mom, apologies for the pronunciation there." I think I even saw a small head bow, but I'm not too sure. Our little group goes to sit on a bench nearby, and for the next 5 minutes, nothing happens. We're just having some small talk. Then the bully returns. The mother of the small girl wanted to stand up, but gets stopped by my girlfriend, who tells her that she has nothing to worry about because her kid is completely safe. Just watch. Trust me on this. The mother is visibly uneasy, but does remain seated, which is when I noticed that the behaviour and stance of the two cousins has completely changed. They seem much more confident and relaxed. The boy starts making a fuss, while one of the cousins stands up, points to him, and yells something at him, in Japanese, obviously. He once again tries to shove her out of his way, but this time she's faster. She steps aside, does something with her leg, and gives him a huge shove. Next moment, he's eating sand. No, literally. He gets up visibly angry with his face covered in sand. This time though, he becomes violent and actually tries to hit one of the cousins with his fists. Yet, tries. She evades one attempt, then grabs his hand, spins it around, and the next moment the boy finds his arm twisted behind his back and he starts screaming. The other cousin now also stands up, pats the young girl on her head, makes another move, and once again the boy gets shoved to the ground, this time by both cousins. Hard. When he looks up, the other cousin actually makes a moving gesture as if she wants to kick him, but without actually moving her legs or anything. She's obviously just threatening him. My girlfriend pokes me with a huge grin on her face and tells me, surely that deserves a point for self-restraint. Don't you agree? She's visibly loving every moment of this. Apparently the boy isn't totally stupid and he runs off, while one cousin immediately turns to the young girl again, who is clearly still having a good time. Not the least upset with the bully. "What was that in God's name?" the mother asks. "Oh, sorry. What the heck was that?" she asks. My girlfriend tells the mother that her cousins are taking the same self-defense classes as she and her sister once did, and that she had decided to pull rank by telling her cousins that it was okay for them to actually defend themselves, as long as they didn't overdo it, of course. The mother wanted to know more about these classes, but unfortunately for her, my girlfriend had to tell her the actual school was located all the way out in a suburb of Tokyo, so not something her daughter would be able to attend. Mummy returns with a BOA, a guard. We're chatting some more for the next 10 minutes, after which the bully's mother storms over to us with a BOA in tow. BOA is Dutch for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, which basically means so much as being a deputy, but without the proper training nor having any weapons. Generally speaking, most of them usually handle ticketing people. He tells us that he has gotten a complaint from the woman about people beating up her kid, to which the mother of the young girl immediately snaps, "Whatever happened with letting the kids sort out their own problems?" Now the funny thing is, apparently the whole spectacle didn't really go unnoticed, and before we could say or do anything, someone else had stormed over as well. "I saw the whole thing, officer," an older woman said. "Her brat," she said, pointing at the Karen, "was harassing and beating the kid in the pink dress when these two awesome kids stepped in and protected her." Meanwhile, another man had walked over. "Officer, that brat got everything he deserved. He started it. The only thing that happened was that those girls defended themselves from him." The officer listened to everyone's statements and ended up deciding to ticket the mother of the brat. I assume for disturbing the peace, but I don't know any details because at this time we decided to leave and went our separate ways. Aftermath. During our walk back to the hotel/restaurant, the cousins told us the whole story, and I actually learned something new as well. While they were in the castle, they saw the boy harassing the young girl in the pink dress and immediately decided that this wasn't right, also because he was almost twice her size. He actually pulled on her hair while she was already crying, which made the cousins plain angry. But the only thing they did was get the boy away from the girl. One cousin distracted the boy by blocking him from grabbing the girl's hair again, and she also started taunting him while the other comforted the young girl and led her to the exit, but the one we agreed on. so the girl's mother never saw her leave and got worried. The other cousin managed to lose the boy in the crowd, at first anyway, and she joined her sister near the exit. So I asked my girlfriend why they didn't do all that stuff right away, to which she told me that they weren't allowed to. The first rule of self-defense is apparently always leave if you can. And her cousins are at a level where the use of these techniques outside their school is strictly prohibited, unless there's an actual threat, of course, or if they've been given direct permission by an elder of the same school. A rule which my girlfriend was stretching a little bit, but she told me that she would write up the whole altercation so that the cousins could take her letter back with them. She was actually not kidding when she talked about points for self-restraint, because that would actually be her advice in the letter. But yeah, typical hypocrite behaviour. Let the kids sort it out until it suddenly doesn't go your way, eh? Yeah, let the kids sort it out is something you can pretty easily say when your kid is twice the size of the other kid that is in this altercation and is the one bullying them. Like, it's just ridiculous. But if you say that sort of thing, surely you have to just sit back and watch your kid just get destroyed by some good old martial arts self-defense. Like, if you say it, you got to stick by it. And ultimately, applaud the kids. You know what? Reading this, it actually does make me think. Like, every kid, I think, should, if possible, go through some form of self-defense. I mean, this is just so cool. The fact that these two kids were like not really even that worried about this guy at all. They were trying to keep the peace, but they knew in the back of their minds, if they had to use any form of self-defense, they were fine with it, and they would be able to do what they had to do to make sure that the other girl didn't get physically harmed. It's a pretty cool position to be in. Like, seeing how calm and collected they were when they were told they were allowed to use self-defense, and just knowing their ability, pretty elite. And they were just having a good time until they had to step in again, and then actually at that point get a little bit physical. But they weren't harming the kid, were they? They were just saying, no, back off, putting them in his place, yeah, with a little bit of physicality. But it's not as if they were like scrapping him, punching him. They just made him eat a little bit of sand. Who doesn't love that? Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you very much to the two of you that submitted those stories. Again, guys, if you want to see your personal story in one of my episodes, get my thoughts on it, of course, as I narrate it and afterwards in my commentary. And also everyone listening to and watching this episode right now in the comments down below, you can do. Link to submit that is down below in the description. redditorytstories@gmail.com. Yeah. Hope to see one of your stories in a video soon.